Uh, yeah, we're just starting the recording. Sorry. So step two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Now, I highly suggest you have a notebook because this is a 10-part step I've learned. And we're gonna go around the room and have you comment. Just stop screen sharing for a second, Amy. We're gonna go around with the 10 different points that are made on this step. And then you're going to have an opportunity to express if something comes to you as we go through this point. The whole thing here is we need to identify with this step. It's not enough for me to simply read to you and tell you a story about step two. You've got to find yourself in step two. And in step two, we have further humiliation in that we have to surrender to a higher power. And now, for a lot of us, this is an obstacle. But let's clear something up right from the get-go. If you're not sure about this, we are not talking about religion. Okay? It doesn't matter what sect, denomination, or organized religion you're involved in or not. That is not the business of AA, and that's not what we're after here. What we're in here is to fix our spirit and find a spiritual answer. And when we connect with that, drinking is no longer the problem. So the other reason that we reject the idea of a higher power is because we think we are better than that concept. It's ego. It's ego. So to get into this step, all you have to be willing to do is find something bigger than you, a higher power. Stop being our own power. Okay? So it says in here, some of us might confuse our talk about God or a higher power with religion. Okay, we just cleared that up. Now let's take it into what the spirituality of step two is really about. Got your notebooks handy? Because this is the origins of this that I have recited so many times. It's in the little red book workbook. Let us look at step two. Okay, remember step two? Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Let's look at the word came. And here's where you might want to take a note because we're going to break this down. Came to, and then came to believe. So came, that means we're here. We're in the process. And we're ready and willing to receive instructions. It's not all going to happen at once for us. But when we drink, the first things that go are our spiritual values. They have to. Otherwise, we'd have to stop drinking. When we get to AA, at least for me, I was spiritually bankrupt. I just didn't know it. I never considered spirituality. I always thought that was something that my sisters did in Woodstock and stuff. I didn't have any concept of it one way or another. So we're here. Now, the next thing that we have to look at is we came to. Hello, no hangover. You came to, right? The physical detox. It's like coming around. I'm coming to. My senses are waking up again. I'm able to use my God-given intellect to understand things. And as Gary was emphasizing, become teachable. Awareness, waking up, you're coming to. So your mental condition improves with this program and with abstinence. And then, so we came to, we came to believe. Now, here's where the question of faith or belief in God or a higher power comes up. And so, are you struggling with this particular point? This is one of the things that we've got to face straight on. And whether you're a person that's just saying, I'm not going to believe, or I've got a bad experience with believing, what I'm asking you to be is teachable. Remember our set aside prayer? Everything you think you know about spiritual terms, our higher power, We're setting all of that aside. So tonight, I invite you to have a new experience with step 2, no matter what you know about it. Now, let's just go back to what step 2 says again. Came to believe, we've dissected that a power greater than ourselves. And if you're struggling with what that can be, it can be, as Gary had suggested in my first meetings, group of drunks, great outdoors, anything as long as it's not you. The idea is to get out of self-control. Now, here's the next part of this. Could, not must, okay, this is an invitation, could restore us to sanity. Okay, so let's just talk about sanity. This is where humility is going to be big in this step, because I have to be humble to be teachable, but I also have to be humble to accept that my behavior is insane. So what we're going to do is go into the key ideas, breaking down this one sentence step, and we're going to go around the room after I introduce each of the key ideas. And this is where your journal comes in so handy. And Amy can screen share. So what we're going to do is Amy's going to call on you, or if you have if something really hits you, unmute and just jump in here. So this is what we're going to start with. Key idea number 1. Wherever alcohol has been involved, we have been strangely insane. Okay, what is sanity? Sanity is soundness of mind. And the insanity is doing something over which I have no control, that makes absolutely no sense and harms me, and I do it again and again and again, expecting a different result. So there it is. Can anybody pipe in here and give me an example of where their drinking and using behavior was clearly insane?
So we'll have 2 or 3 people share, and you can share for a couple minutes. And Gordon, you want to go first? And if you can either do what Gordon just did or raise your virtual hand, or if someone in the group over there physically, let me know. Gary, go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, for me, the insanity was thinking that this time will be different. I mean, how many times do I have to prove that I cannot drink like other people? And like it's like I relate it to the jaywalker, and it's like that type of thinking is insane. If I take that first drink, this is what happens. A, B, C happens. If I take A, B, and C will follow. And when I look back and think at it, it just, the insanity of it is just crazy. And then the other one is that it's insane what I'll do, the lengths that I will go, the things that I'll burn down to keep drinking once I get going. So that's what insanity is for me.
Thanks, Gordon. Anybody else want to jump in and share a couple points about insanity to them?
I'll jump in.
Got it, Annie?
So Annie, alcoholic. One point that comes to mind when I think of like when my addiction became very insane was when I was heavily drugging. I wasn't drinking as much. And someone told me that if you don't drink while you drug, then it makes your brain go insane. So I started drinking more so I wouldn't go insane, even though that reasoning is absolutely insane. That's probably one of my points. Yeah.
Thanks, Annie. One more person want to share?
I'm Brenda and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, the insanity of it to me is almost dying from this disease and still going back out, expecting it to be different. And every time it has proved to me that it's just the same. It's not fun anymore. And I just have like no clue why I keep trying it. That is insane. That's insanity to me.
Thanks,
Ye-
Miss Brenda.
Beautiful. Now, if you want to follow along, I'm in the second paragraph of the little red book. No alcoholic, and that's where each of these terms is taken from. So now we're on to number 2. No alcoholic acts sanely while they're drinking. Chronic poisoning from alcohol results in compulsive drinking and insane behavior. Willpower is not a factor in recovery until the compulsion has been removed. Since reservations defeat any honest attempt to stop drinking, we find it necessary to recognize our mental instability. Okay? We have to, it says right at the beginning of this is a mental illness. I have to recognize when it comes to alcohol and drugs, I have a mental illness. And then key concept 2, dodging the truth, and the truth is of our mental instability, only results in distorted thinking and opposition to help from a power greater than ourselves. So this is when we don't want to be honest with ourselves. You know, and how it works, it says, first of all, we got to let go absolutely, okay? And that we have to be rigorously honest. So I have to be teachable and open-minded to accept I've got a disease. I've got a mental illness, but it's activated when I take these substances. I'm lucky. So I'd like to know if anyone here has reservations about whether they think they have a mental illness or have a disease, or how, or if you don't, how have you accepted this?
Will you restate that one more time, Jill?
So it says we're dodging the truth in accepting that we have this mental illness, this disease. So we'd like to discuss how we can accept that we've actually got this thing. And is there anyone fighting it?
Anybody want to share to that question? Jenna? There you go.
Okay. So when I first got into AA and, people said this was a disease and never had it recognized as a mental illness. I guess I kind of accepted it as an allergy because I have a lot of allergies. So, and then just told it was an allergy. So, and then it was expressed as a disease. So I'm kind of confused. Like, when I drink, it's just like when I eat certain foods, I get a reaction. So I guess how I'm kind of trying to accept it is that if I drink, right, then I become like a different person. So I guess you could say, like Jill, that you're saying it is a mental illness because you're not yourself.
Yes.
Right. So you turn into someone else. So I see how that works for sure. Just as I'm like speaking it out and getting it out and stuff, I could definitely see it as a mental illness. Yep. And just reacted by alcohol. So makes sense.
And that's the beauty of it. This is the disease that we don't actually, have to take what it is that's making us sick.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Gary here, alcoholic. One thing I was going to say on that topic is, I think I mentioned last week, but early on in the game, somebody said dis-ease. If you're not sure about whether you have a disease, break it down to dis-ease. And that was exactly how I felt. I was always uncomfortable in my own skin. And I was ill at ease. And that made total sense to me. The only time I felt good for a while was when I drank. And when that stopped working, I needed to find something different.
Anybody else? I lost all my people. There we go. Oh, Maya.
Yeah, hey, my alcoholic. What popped to mind here was I haven't seen anything refer to alcoholism as a mental illness before reading this little red book, but then I realized that the mental obsession is such a illness, like for me, where it's this monster on my back at all times. When I'm drinking, I just more, cannot stop thinking about it. And then I also have the spiritual dis-ease that goes with that. So that's kind of what stood up for me about the mental illness that's listed here, was that obsessiveness. Nothing else mattered, really. And that's also insane.
Absolutely. And also it's the opposite of being mentally well. And this is where we get into the emotional sobriety. You know, the fixation and the compulsive obsessive thinking is when I start to get back into my alcoholic thinking, when it goes back to ego and self, and I've got to have that, I got to have that, I got to have that, whether it's a person or whether it's food or whether it's gambling or whatever, the thinking starts to become obsessive. So they're not using the term mentally ill as in you need to be institutionalized, although many of us are. It's more a case of exactly how you guys have just expressed it. So well done. Okay, so now we're on the top of page 24 in the little red book, and this is going to be.
Jill, do you want me to have that up like this? You mean you're right here, right? Offends our false pride.
I'm on those of us who've had an honest desire.
Okay, hold on. Because it might be, I think that's where I just was, right here. Okay, so if anybody's following along, I'll come back and forth. But Lisa Lou had asked, so that was the paragraph we read a second ago. So we're right here. Those of us. Okay, I'm ready. Jill, sorry about that.
Oh, you've got it. Okay, so now those of us, so each of the key ideas, just to be clear for you guys, is pulled from a paragraph in the little red book. And what I've done is I've gone back to the actual contents because the summary needs a little elaboration, like we just went through the exercise of flushing out mental illness, right? Okay, so key idea 3, our sick personalities find a sure source of power and healing in God as we understood him. Now, going back to the little red book, reading that paragraph, it says, those of us who have had an honest desire to recover from the mental sickness, okay, mental sickness, another way of defining it, that alcoholism has imposed upon us, have successfully used this power. So there's message of hope here. If we use our higher power, then this mental sickness isn't something we have to suffer from. And here's where the actual quote comes from for key idea number 3. Our sick personalities find a sure source of power and healing in God, again, as we understood him. God renews our minds and straightens out our thinking. So whenever I see the word God there, if you're having a hard time with the word God, which I did, I insert HP, higher power, because it's your concept. Let's make this very clear. Whether you're Catholic, Protestant, pagan, I don't care. It's not about religion. It's just about a concept of a power greater than you individually are. Okay? So that is the third concept. So the examples, it says in key idea 3, is that we can stop feeling threatened. We're less trapped by grandiosity and perfectionism. This allows us to be human and learn from our mistakes. We are no longer so victimized that we have to be right all the time. We repeat a simple prayer, accept me as I am, so that I may learn what I can become. So this is what I'd like to discuss in this particular one, is examples of where you might have been in your own way of getting this program, thinking that you had to have it perfect, or being grandiose and not accepting the program as it is. Is anybody want to comment on that?
Yeah, I will. My name's Lisa Lou, alcoholic addict.
Hey, Lisa.
it was only recently that I really saw that I was suffering from perfectionism with the program and in other aspects of my addiction, my life. And I didn't know. I thought it was something else. And because I'd been in the program before, my insanity, my ego told me that I have to really have it together because don't you know, I'm in my 60s and I'm coming back as an alcoholic trying to recover, and I have to get it together because everyone's going to judge me and I'm judging me like beyond comprehension, that I don't get to just be where I'm at right now, accepting. And I also, my perfectionism from, or no, the intellectual part of superiority. I just want to briefly comment on just a step back there because I didn't say anything, but also I'm diagnosed with a mental condition, a mood disorder, and that also would confuse me because I'm alcoholic plus ADHD or bipolar 2 or something. And then I would get sick in my actual mental illness from a doctor, and then I would use the alcohol and cocaine because when I felt suicidal, or if I felt like hopeless, or I had insane emotions, like all alcoholics do with that added octave of the mental health thing, I would use, and it would take it away temporarily, but it is a form of insanity. And the perfectionism, I see something I learned from my father, and it's also I have to own it because if I don't let that go, I'm not going to be able to be uh, open-minded enough to get this program finally right now. Thank you so much.
Try
Thanks,
that.
Lisa. Oh,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, I was just saying thank you. Go ahead, Jill.
No, try that prayer, Lisa. The very last sentence, accept me as I am. I have to accept me as I am. My weight,
Accept me as I am, so I may be. What was
that I
the
can
rest of
become.
it?
Accept me as I am so that I may learn,
Maybe.
I may become.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Michelle?
Anyone else on that?
Is Michelle about? Anybody? I think Michelle, are you trying to unmute?
No,
Yep.
I wasn't.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying it on my computer and maybe that did something.
No, I just thought I could see you moving.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just trying to move my phone. I'm switching.
Anybody else want to share? Anybody in the live group?
Okay. Let's move on then to key idea number 4.
Okay, hold on. I'll pull it up.
I love this. It's long. The important thing is that we believe in it. Step 2 opens a vista of new hope when based on willingness and faith. When we call this power is a matter, what we call our power is a matter of choice. Like I told you, I call mine HP. God is what we will. Call it what we will. Naming it is unimportant. The important thing is that we believe. It's that simple. I have to get out of my own way and say, okay, my best thinking got me to where I am. I need to turn this over and truly believe that HP's got me. Because every time Jill starts to stick her oar in and run it her way again, the show does not come off as directed. So does anyone here want to talk about believing and how it progresses?
Gary, alcoholic. I just wanted to say something that one of the guys that came to a visitor to one of our meetings said one day really struck me on that. And he said, you don't have to believe in anything as long as you believe in something. And I love that, because that's what it was like when I was in this stage initially. I had no concept of what my higher power was, but we sat around as a group. There's like 5 of us that were sitting around, all new in our steps. What we came to understand is that we just had to believe in something. Didn't have to understand what it was, as long as I believed that there was something out there. And a couple of the examples that were thrown out there were things like electricity, which talks about in the 12 by 12, or these days, like I believe in the yellow lines on the road. You know, most people are going to stay on the other side of them. You know, if I don't have confidence that's going to happen, you know, it could be an ugly situation. And I believe in things like the internet. I have no idea how it works, but I believe it's out there, and that, you know, we get the ability to talk like this. Have I no idea why or how it works, but I have a belief that it will. And I also came to understand, and I was told that there's a real difference between truth and beliefs. You can't change the truth, but you can change your beliefs. And that's what this is all about is, you know, I believed I wasn't going to be able to stop drinking. And this program convinced me otherwise. You know, I came to believe that I could get better. So that's my 2 bits.
Right on, Gary.
Sorry, I was taking notes on that. I like that. Anybody else want to share to that?
Hand up.
Oh, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura. I'm an alcoholic addict. Yeah, believing. I'm very grateful that I have always believed in a higher power. I wasn't tainted as a young person with religion. I didn't even go to church or whatnot. So I'm really grateful that I wasn't tainted. But I just always had a knowing. And you know, my angels or whatever, like I know that they were always guiding me and taking care of me because my life's been quite charmed, even though it's been an addicted life. But it was towards the end when I think because I would switch back and forth towards the end from like alcohol to then to drugs, and I had gotten into a couple like just little fender benders, and I knew it was just little, like just like in a parking lot somebody hit me, and then another time I got, you know, just people were always hitting me from behind. And then the last time that happened I was high, and I was just going down the road. I'm like, oh, it won't hit me until I get back. It'll be fine. And of course, there was a little snowfall, and someone just ran into me because there was the first snowfall. And I knew like it was just the universe was just like nudging me, like, just you got to get sober. Like, come on, just you can do this. And anyway, I just knew that it was my angels or my higher power just giving me all these little like fender benders to be like, come on, get sober. Anyway, I knew it was happening, but I ended up getting there, thank God.
Thank you. Anybody else want to chime in on that one? Oh, Brenda.
Yeah. What I wanted to say about this is my higher power is God. And as a child and growing up, we were always in church, always surrounded by it. Mom was a Sunday school teacher, dad was on the cemetery board, you know, but back then it was more of a fearful God, you know, a punishing God. And it's like all big and power and scary, you know. But since I got into Alcoholics Anonymous years ago, I made God my higher power, but then I came to learn, as I understand him, that he's a loving God and a forgiving God, and that I can lean on him any time I need to. And you know, it's just like my concept is just completely different than it was when I was growing up, and I'm really, really thankful for that. Um, because I lean on him an awful lot. But yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, compared to my childhood, it is a lot different and a lot better for me.
Thanks, Miss Brenda.
Love that. Okay, key idea number 5.
I'm getting there, Jill. Hold on. Just pause right when you say that so I can get there.
Only a sentence, but it's a big one. Faith in a higher power is a basic law of recovery. Basic law. That is a fundamental principle, a cornerstone. Faith in a higher power. Okay, so we got to get this thing. Faith in a higher power is a basic law of recovery. It is always evident in the lives of successful members. If you go back and read the stories in the back of the book, you will find that there is a thread in every single one of them discovering their higher power. What they have done, we can do. By practicing the 12 steps, we gain a conscious contact with this power to live in contented sobriety. So the note on this one and the topic for discussion is when something of value is taken away from us. And for me, my drugs and alcohol was something of value to me. It was my higher power. It ran my friggin' life. I don't know about you guys, but I spent a huge amount of time thinking about the supply chain. You know, whether I had enough, where it was hidden, if I could remember where it was hidden, if I'd taken it, if I'd not taken it, how much, you know, just a continuous supply chain issue. So when something of value is taken from us, we need to replace it with something of equal or greater value. Faith is a good replacement for this. For fear is frustration, ego, anxiety, and resentment. So let's replace faith with fear. Discuss.
By the way, okay. Fear with faith.
Fear
Okay.
with faith. That's it. Discuss.
Okay, John, alcoholic.
Hey, John.
I've heard from a member that comes to our room. You know, if everyone wants to do this exercise, you can. Basically, if you close your eyes and then picture a shape of a heart, and put a door at the top left and a door at the bottom right. And if you let faith in the top, fear is going to run out the bottom.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that.
And so, you know, if you're struggling with that concept, that's how I think of faith. Faith is actually more than belief. Faith is actually trusting that your higher power will do what you are asking help with. For example, like staying sober today. If you ask your higher power, thank you for keeping me sober, then you know that's faith that your higher power is working in your life. So that's all I got.
Thanks,
That's
John.
Brilliant.
Great,
Thanks for
John.
that.
I'd like to ask something about that if I may. Lisa Lou,
Hi, Lisa.
I wasn't going to make it tonight just because I'm so tired and I'm on a medication. I couldn't stop coughing. And then I went, wait a minute. Step 2 is where I need help. And this last thing you just brought up is amazing because what I don't understand as a chronic relapser and a brainiac is I would pray when I had frustration, resentment, anger, and fear, whatever. And then the desire would used to come up and it would work that night. And then I do it another night, go to the meeting, pray, talk to someone at work that night, and then another night it wouldn't. And I don't know what I was doing wrong. And the other thing that comes up for me is you know, until you do the step 4, there's all this stuff swimming around. You know what I mean? All the stuff of the consequences of the wreckage of my past, which are in front of me on all levels, spiritually, mentally, financially, physically, and emotionally. So I'm hoping that this wonderful book and what we're studying can show me how to trust in this higher power that I pick. You know what I'm saying? And that when this and change it from the faith to fear, because when the frustration, the anxiety, and the resentment and the anger come in, that's usually when I don't understand why I made it one night and not another. I don't know if that makes any sense to anybody, but I just wanted to ask. Thanks.
Gary, did you want to pipe in there?
Well, for me, kind of like what was already said, you know, faith is a matter of finally having some trust in your higher power. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people in here say that, you know, I have to go back and ask my higher power multiple times. Sometimes it's every couple of minutes, you know. I can't just leave it for once in the morning or once at night. You know, whenever I'm feeling tested or it's a trial, I need to ask for my higher power, you know, to relieve me of basically the bondage of self, you know. And usually what it takes is for me to get out of my own head, you know. I was going to bring this up at the end. You know, we talk about the Serenity Prayer, it's a tool all the time. One of the things that was told to me about the Serenity Prayer that really struck me is, you know, it starts off with the words, God grant me the serenity, you know. And my sponsor at the time pointed out, you know, look up the word grant. You know, grant isn't a gift. It's not the grace of God. It's a grant means something very specific. It means I'm going to do something in exchange for you giving me something, you know. And in this case, you know, I have to have trust. I have to really lean into that trust and have trust that it will work if I give it time to work. I'm not sure if that helps Lisa in what she's saying, but you know, it's a matter of just having that faith and trust in the faith. You know, like faith that it's going to work under all circumstances.
Thank you. That does help. And I just want to apologize briefly. I only have my phone. My laptop's not working, so I closed my door because it's too hard to hold it up all the time. Close them.
No worries.
Thank you very much. Keep doing it. Yeah.
Lisa and Gary. Johnny Mac, I see your hand is up. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Johnny and I'm an alcoholic. And I have a little different take on this one. Maybe I'm wrong on it, but I have a different take and I just have to throw it in there. When I came in here, I didn't have the faith. It wasn't even in the bookmark yet. So I couldn't use faith to replace all those other lovely attributes that they talk about in that little segment. What I had was hope. And what I still use today to replace fear and anger and all the rest of it is hope. Hope was given to me in my first meeting. The hope that this thing would work, period. The hope I could recover. The hope that there was a way. The hope that I wasn't alone. The hope that I could do something. I didn't have faith on anything. My faith had been ruined a long time before and everything else. You know, and even to this day, and I've been around here long enough, I still have trouble with the faith end. I have a belief in a higher power, no question there. But I still have to rely on the hope. Anytime there's fear or, you know, anytime I'm scared or anything like that, hope that the thing will work out. There's a situation I don't know about, I hope it will work out. My faith is in a higher power that will do what I cannot do. My fear is in the things I can do. You know, so I have to limit it to that. So just a suggestion that if there's a problem with the faith being just a little bit short of where you want it to be, rely on hope. I find it tends to work out to the same thing in the end anyway. As long as it's not my will that's being done, I'm going to be okay. That's it for me. I'm out. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Johnny. Gary,
Oh, go ahead.
just on that note, what I was going to say is that, you know, for me, when I first came in here, just like Johnny was kind of talking about, you know, I came in a hopeless state of mind and body. And at my first meeting, I walked out with a glimmer of hope, you know, and my first hope was that if I stuck around these people that were in the room, that maybe my life could change and that maybe they knew something more than I did. And eventually that hope turned into a bit of faith that if I kept coming to these meetings and listened to what these people had to say, you know, I might be able to pick up some of what, you know, is going on in their lives. And by finally starting to work the steps, actually doing some of the work, that faith started to turn into kind of an understanding of a higher power. But, you know, it's not something you have to understand or have. You know, it's not something that just happens for most of us. You know, it's like they talk about it, you know, it's the educational, but I had to understand what a higher power was and what faith was and what trust was before I could move forward. And on that note, one thing that recommend is if you haven't read it yet or haven't looked at it yet, on page 567 in the book, big book,
Oh,
it's
do you want me
the
to pull that
second
up?
appendix.
Do you want me to pull it up?
You can just as an example, but
I have it ready to go.
yeah, it's called the spiritual experience, you know, and it explains what a spiritual experience is in the terms of Alcoholics Anonymous and what a spiritual awakening is. And based on what we're discussing here, it's a very useful tool to help you understand it. And one of the exercises that was explained to me when you read this is if you take time, and actually Joe and Charlie talk about it too, is read through this and see how many examples of change you can find. Like, what is talking about change in this? You know, they say that when Bill wrote a lot of this stuff, he liked to say the same thing over and over and over again just to try to drive it through. But look at all the different ways that change is talked about in here. It's a spiritual awakening, personality change. If you keep reading through it, it'll talk about adjustments, you know, but you'll find that pretty well every paragraph here has at least two, you know, one or two different examples of change in here. And I found it really, really beneficial. And like I say, you don't have to have a concept of a higher power. You just have to know there is one. You know, I love the idea, you know, that comes up quite often in our meetings is, you know, I know there is a higher power and I just know that I don't understand it, but I know I'm not it. That's all I needed to have is the fact that I know I'm not the higher power. So that was enough to get me started down the road of recovery. And I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Gary. I see Michelle has her hand up.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to, oh, my things. Oh, you know what? It's echoing. I don't know how to get rid of it. I have two devices on. I'll figure it
You
out.
gotta turn the volume down on one of them so that, like,
Yeah,
on
I've
the
got,
one you've got hidden, turn the volume way down.
yeah, I've got it muted on my phone and it still does it. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, you fixed it. It's not echoing right now. Oh, maybe it's echoing on your side. It wasn't bad for us.
Oh, no, it's
That-
echoing for me.
Okay. Okay.
I'll come back.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, now we're gonna move on to key idea number 6.
Okay, hold on.
Use of the word sanity offends our false pride. I really like this one. Okay, the paragraph is mental handicaps stand between us and recovery. Our lack of self-criticism defeats an honest evaluation of our alcoholism. Use of the word of sanity offends our false pride. We admit our illness, but rebel against question of our mental soundness. This partial acceptance is a hazard to our sobriety. We benefit most from accepting step 2 with no reservations. So, alcohol enabled us to lead a false life. And here we now have to admit that we were phonies. Our acceptance of alcoholism is not passive, but based in reality and truth. And what I read from this, my understanding of this is, I don't know about you guys, but I have Jill, the non-drinking sober person, and the Jill I hope you never meet. So I also had false images, false personas, false profiles that I was hiding behind. It's sort of like having that perfect Facebook page or that perfect social media presence, when behind it, I was dying. It was all a facade, and it was built on no foundation but my ego. So what this is asking is, are you ready to let go of your false life? Are you going to be able to admit that you were living a lie and let go of that part, that phony part? And our acceptance of that, as it says, it has to be active in that we're being based in reality. Okay, so the question is, were you leading a false life? And are you able to let that go?
Sure, go for it, Annie.
I am very happy to speak on that. With my relapse, I relapsed in about April, and I lied to my parents, I lied to my group, I lied to my sponsor, I lied to my partner. So I was living a lie, and being caught lying and being open about it has actually made me feel a lot better. And I don't feel the way I felt living that lie. It kind of relieved something in me. And yeah, I'm still working on my sobriety, but I don't have to lie about working on my sobriety anymore. I can be open and honest, and I can actually talk to people and connect with people who can help me.
I love that.
Thanks, Eddie.
Anybody else want to jump in? Oh, Laura.
Hi, Laura, alcoholic addict. Yeah, I definitely was leading a false life because I'm supposed to be this health practitioner who's trying to give advice and support to my patients, and I was totally killing myself. So yeah, I was definitely leading a false life there, and it just ate away at me. I'm like, oh, how can I give advice and care to people when I can't even care for myself? So yeah.
Mm. Thanks, Laura. Anybody else?
Okay, everybody got that one? Let's move on now to number 7. Okay, it says it might be suicidal to disagree with any part of it. So resolve to be open-minded and accept the 12 steps in their entirety. That's essentially saying accept the whole program. So reading from the text, as a beginner, you will avoid confusion in the interpretation of this step, step 2, if you approach it with a sincere desire for the accepted AA meaning. Remind yourself that you are making the AA recovery program your way of life. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we're making a commitment to giving it a real go, because it's essential for your recovery from alcoholism. Essential. Your life depends. These words aren't used lightly. Depends on this program, which is the 12 steps. Your happiness and the security of your home, your very life. It might be suicidal to disagree with any part of it, so resolve to be open-minded and accept the 12 steps in their entirety. And that, for me, was the basis on why I relapsed over and over and over again, because I wouldn't give over. I wouldn't accept the whole program. Whatever they threw at me, I had a yeah but. And until I got rid of my yeah buts, I couldn't hear the message. And I certainly couldn't connect with my higher power. Discuss.
Wait, did you want to read this part?
Yeah, the question is do you feel it's suicidal to not do the program completely?
Anybody want to share on that one?
Gary Alcoholic, just one thing I was going to say about that is, again, one of those things I mentioned last week that I think is really important. You know, this is a good point to say, just a reminder that, you know, this is not a program of suggestions, it's a suggested program of recovery, you know, and for whatever reason, even in the book, it talks about suggestions, you know, and you don't get to pick and choose. It's not a smorgasbord. It's like start at step 1, work your way through to step 12. You can't leave one out just because you don't like what it's telling you. And it's a suggested program of recovery. And it's suggested just in the same way it says the drowning receive, grab onto a life preserver, or jump out of a plane with a parachute, you pull the ripcord. you know. So suggested you do those things, but it's suggested because it'll save your life. So leave it at that.
Okay, I'm like mindful of the time, so I'm going to move on a bit here. I'm
Okay.
back on after concept 7. Thank you for that. The truth is, most members have acted insane only during periods of intoxication. This is common practice for all drinkers who get tight, high, whatever. But to the alcoholic who shortens the intervals between periods of intoxication and finally merges them into one big long drunk, you know, the big bender, it becomes a serious matter. Insane behavior because of an evening's drinking is generally excused, but when it's carried on for weeks and months that lengthen into years, it becomes a pattern that is fixed in the brain. So we're here to learn new impulse control because we know we've destroyed that part of our cerebral cortex. We cannot overlook the harmful effect of the prolonged use of alcohol or its unhealthy mental condition, which results in complete disregard of sane thought or normal behavior. It has physical consequences. There's no doubt about it. We're in here to learn new impulse control. Using alcohol cannot control their impulses. They lack mental coordination. You guys have staggered. I've fallen in garbage cans. Continued use of alcoholic damages the brain and sometimes causes insanity. My father died of a wet brain. It's not a nice way to go. Signs of such injuries seem to exist in all alcoholics in proportion to their physical resistance to alcohol poisoning and to the length of time involved in abnormal drinking. In other words, it didn't take you 5 minutes to get here, so don't think it's going to take 5 minutes to get better. It's a process of recovery. Alcoholics who cling to the illusion that they exercise sanity in their drinking are invited to prove their case against the accepted definition of insanity. Go try it again and see if you get a different result, in other words. A simple definition of insanity is a disorder of behavior that occurs when the body impulses no longer find in the brain a coordinating center for the conditioning of behavior. When this condition arises, the person's behavior is unpredictable and she or he becomes legally insane. Has your behavior ever been unpredictable when you've been drinking or high? The conduct of the uncontrolled drinker who has become alcoholic is likewise unpredictable. The alcoholic's friends and relatives take on long faces as alcoholism perverts the power of reason. It dulls our talent and it limits our own self-preservation. It makes us irresponsible and a menace to society. How is the alcoholic to account for the insane impulse that prompts him or her to reach for that first drink that starts yet another binge? Is it a sane act? Is the alcoholic obsessed? Is it the result of irrational thinking? Does it involve thinking at all? Does sanity in an alcoholic imply the power to accept or reject that first drink? We think it does, and this is where we go to key idea number 8. So it says, we think it does. We do not believe the alcoholic can help him or herself. We're powerless, right? We did that last week. We believe, and this is it, guys, key idea number 8. We believe and know from our experience that a power greater than ourselves can remove this obsession, straighten our twisted thinking, our emotional lack of sobriety, and restore us to sane thought and behavior. Okay, so our way doesn't work. And I'd like to hear some proof from anybody in here that this program is working.
I've been here 28 years.
Love it.
I have to talk a lot tonight, I guess. Lisa Lou, alcoholic. I find it incredible what you just read. It's telling me that not just, people have stayed sober for 20 years, which is amazing, but there's actually a power that we can access that straightens out our thinking, removes our obsession. That's like magic. That's like incredible. You know what I mean? And I need to keep coming and learn how to access this power on a regular basis, because that is really miraculous for a hopeless, deathly illness.
And I just want to add that I was living in Skid Row before I come, and Johnny Mac has got a lot more than I do, so it does work.
All right, I love that. Okay, we're going to move on to key idea number 9. We believe and know from experience that a power greater than ourselves can, oh, that was 8, sorry. This encourages deception over our real mental health and fitness. It breeds a superior feeling of false security. Okay, so where this comes from is we must also remember in the progressive development of alcoholism, the power of reasoning is slowly deteriorated. What does that mean? This is a progressive disease, you guys. And I know from the Whistler group, my first day was somebody who had 22 years relapsing and coming back into that mountain group. And he went out and went right back to where he left off 22 years previous. So it says this encourages deception over real mental health and fitness. It breeds a superior feeling of false security. To drink, and I'm back now on key idea number 9, Amy. To drink the way we did, we had to rationalize and justify what we were doing. In other words, we had to do this to distort reality, to make our insane behaviors sound sane. We thought our journeys outside reality brought us peace and serenity. In other words, our escapism to not feel, we thought that was peace and serenity. When we returned to reality, like the sober world, we found harshness and pain. And so it went, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Run, escape, pain. Run, escape, pain. You don't have to live like that anymore. So what I would like to discuss here is who drank to distort reality.
Anybody want to chime in with a little extra? Gary's group?
Gary, alcoholic. What I'd say on that is that my reality was the distortion. I had no concept of what a normal person, I couldn't conceive of what a normal person would think. My thinking was just so distorted that I had no concept of what normal drinking or a normal way of life could be. The only one I knew was the one I was living.
Love it. I'm just looked at the time, you guys. Okay, so we're just going to move on to key idea 10. Sobriety, sanity, security, and peace of mind are within our reach. So this is really the promise of this step. So power greater than ourselves to arrest our alcoholism. The alcoholic record of our past life is not the basis that our future will be judged on. We have a new page before us. We are invited to write our own ticket. Sobriety, sanity, security, and peace of mind are within our reach. And the comment on the suggestion for discussion is our alcoholism wouldn't let us escape anymore, even when we tried using more heavily. I call that when my switch went. I couldn't go back. They say in AA, if you're a cucumber and you become a pickle, there's no way you can become a cucumber again. I was pickled. All that was left of our life was pain and insanity. Our program shows us that in reality, reality isn't a problem, but trying to escape reality is. And I think everybody here nodded when I said, did you drink to not feel? Did you drink to escape reality? So I think we're all on board for that one. So we're going to go to key 11. And this is it's called mental drunkenness. So we said we'd talk about emotional sobriety. In spite of all knowledge, some of us willfully continue in self-centeredness. So we know that it's a matter of ego and staying in self. that we're not receptive to our higher power. But even when we've not been drinking for a while and drink isn't the issue, it's quite easy to get back into self-centeredness, and it's all about me and my ego again. And then I'm not emotionally sober. Then I have to look at these steps in relation to whatever it is that's making me go back into selfish character defects. Okay? So the concept here for discussion is, rather than relate our feelings to the outside world, we make the outside world fit our feelings. I love that. I mean, instead of, everybody else has to change, right? I don't have to change. If only you would be better, I'd be fixed, right? This is a program to be lived. This is a program of positive action. We trust and believe that the changes asked of us are necessary and are good for us. And that is what we are taking on board when we do this step. So those are the 11 major concepts that come out of step 2. And I see we've moved on a little bit later than that. Took most of the meeting to get through those. So where do you want to take it from here, Gary?
Well, I was going to say, I think maybe we'll leave it at that and review the homework for this week. And maybe make a couple of extra suggestions here. So the way the homework was laid out originally, it says, back to the big book, read through chapter 2, there is a solution. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. And as I suggested, take a minute and flip to page 567 and read the spiritual experience, just to really nail down what the difference is between a spiritual awakening and a spiritual experience. And reread or listen to the little red book, step 2, which we've just gone through. There's a bunch of examples there that, if you haven't been convinced, there's a whole list of examples of other ways to look at the insanity that your drinking might bring. And
on 28 and 29, they list 11 ways. If you're struggling to find your behavior is insane, there's some examples there. So go ahead, Gary.
I was just going to say, the other thing is, one of the things that was told to me is always look for the similarities, not the differences. Just because you don't see one of your behaviors on that list doesn't mean you get to say, oh, I'm not that bad. That used to be my thing too, is like, well, I'm not as bad as that person. It's got nothing to do with somebody else. It's when you want to change yourself. And that's what this whole thing is about. Back to the phrase that I put on the first email. If nothing changes, nothing changes. And we're here to, get some sort of change happening in our life. So recommend do the homework. If it's not a habit already, as it was talked about at the beginning, just as we were starting the meeting, Everything A is a fantastic resource. There's all sorts of things that you can listen to as well as read. So if you're out for a walk, or if you're driving to work or something, instead of listening to the radio or listening to music, take a minute and just put something on. Listen to what we've done in the big book, or listen to the 12 by 12, or listen to the Joe and Charlie tapes that talk about the first and second steps. There's a ton of material there that you can, just to reinforce those concepts and those ideas. And every time you hear something in a different way, eventually something's going to resonate and strike you as something that you can feel and understand. So that's what I suggest for tonight.
Laura's got a question.
Hi, could you please just repeat the readings?
There's the chapter 2 in the big book. There's chapter 2, there is a solution. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Page 567, which is the second appendix, which is the spiritual experience. It's page and a bit. And step 2 in the 12 by 12. And then if you are online, there's the what we just read through tonight, the little red book, step 2.
So in the chat, I also had put the second step prayer, a link to that. So that might be a good thing to listen to as you close out your evening. So ask yourself if you can take that prayer. But remember what we started with at the beginning of tonight. This step is we came to believe. So know this is a process. And you can move on. It's just opening your mind and saying, okay, I'm coming to believe. I'm trying to turn this over. I'm willing to try accept this program into my heart and my life.
Awesome. It's a really good place to
Doing
close it off. Yeah.
recording.
Okay, so maybe what we do is just wrap it up with the serenity prayer. And remember, what I said earlier, that second word means something. It's grand. I'm prepared to do some work in exchange for my serenity. I don't expect it just to be given to me. I'm going to do something in exchange for getting a sense of serenity. So on that note, maybe we'll close it off.